Hello and welcome to this new blog post where we will have a look at how to use cost accounting functionalities without using the cost accounting module. And the background of this demo is basically a colleague who asks for how can we use cost allocations and other things and update the costing sheet if we don't make use of the cost accounting module. And it's basically just a workaround that I show you here, but something that might give you some kind of food to think what is possible in the standard application. Yeah, so just imagine what can be done in Dynamics out of the box. Okay, so the first part is cost allocations that we want to create in the general ledger with the cost allocation functionalities, but we want to do that based on actual production posting hours. Yeah? So if you know the cost allocations in GL, then you might know that the allocations can be defined based on postings that are made on main accounts, cost centers, departments, and so on. All what is called either a main account or financial dimension, but there is no integration into production or into projects or whatever. Yeah? And what I want to show you in the following is how we can realize that. And the example that I prepared is from the USMF demo company. So here on top we have the cost centers. I classified them. I said the blue ones here, they are supporting cost centers, like trade, marketing, and some others. And the red ones, they are the main cost centers. And what I did is I posted a production. Therefore, we have here cost of goods sold and here some manufacturing expense. It's basically the transaction that is created when you enter production order. Then I posted some selling and salary expenses and some travel. So some basic transactions just to have some numbers here that we can then check out and investigate. Another thing that you should be aware of here is a total column. And here on top we have the gross profit. And then here the total operating expense. And here at the bottom is total COGS and operating expense. And because this one is negative, the ending number is smaller than this. So don't get confused about this. It's just the way how the system is set up. Okay, and the aim is, of course, to allocate the blue costs, the blue highlighted cost center costs, to the red ones. And the way how this is realized is in 4 steps. So for number 1, we extract the production postings with electronic reporting. Once that is done, then we use Power Automate to update the allocation rules, and then in the 3rd step we execute the allocation rules. And then of course we get our financial report. Okay, so how can this be realized? Well, in the 1st step I run here the cost allocations. This is the electronic report that I have. I run it on a monthly basis. Therefore we have this range here. The output destination for this report is not Power BI but SharePoint, and then I execute it automatically, and in this example on each last Friday of a month. Once we have the report on SharePoint, then we have here our flow, and I start this manually because in my demo machine I do not want to start this flow automatically, because I sometimes stop it and then this would not work. So I start it here manually, but you can automate that. Then the next step cleans up the old rules. I initialize variables, get the data from the electronic report, and then I prepare the data and create new allocation rules. So that's the whole magic. And then what will happen is this allocation rule and the other one, so I basically update both of them. They have a specified source. That's where we take the cost from, and then we allocate them to these different cost centers that I have here, and they are changing here. These two, this ledger allocation destination, this changes permanently every month, depending on the production hours that you post. So this is my report before I did the allocation, and this is it afterwards. And in the following demo, the numbers might change a bit because in the production I get different variances, so the numbers might fluctuate here a bit. But in principle, we should see the outcome that these other cost centers, the supporting cost centers, have a total amount of 0, and the total amount is then allocated to the main cost centers. And that's what I'm going to show you next in my demo system. Okay, so we are here in my USMF demo environment. And what I did is I set this session date to August, because I want to have very clean data that you can follow up. And what I did so far, I recorded some expenses as usual for the other months and run the financial report for that. So that's the financial report before we posted any production order, any production time and something. And these are the data that I showed you before. Now the next step is posting the production order, which will give us some costs in this line and this line. Yeah? And so that you can follow up what I'm doing, I selected here the most basic thing. So I go here into the production control, and I create a new production order. And let's go through this step by step so that you can see and replicate what I'm doing. So first we create a new production order, and I'm doing this for this product, D001, that has sufficient materials usually on stock. So I create it, and then I run through the different steps. So I just say here estimate, and then I say okay, then I say release. Here I'm not making any change. That's also straightforward. And then I'm running the start functionality. And here is something you have to be aware of. And what I'm doing is I'm disabling here the post the root card now. Why is that? Because I want to post the root and the production hours to different cost centers. If I have a look at the default one, then I can see different resources, resource 11111 and so on, and they all have the same cost center assigned, always 10. And I want to change that because later I want to have postings on different cost centers, and I really want to see, hey, what's going on. Therefore, I'm making this kind of manual step, because later I want to extract this data. And also here we have 0.86 hours that we want to see later on when we do our allocations. So I say okay, and that's posted. So now the next steps would be to report this as finished. And now I'm setting here these two parameters. I'm saying okay, and then I end the production order. So let's say end here, and here I'm not making any other selection. So now we have basically our production order and our production times. And the aim is, of course, at the end of the day, we want to go here into the ledger allocation rules. And I have two of them, this one and this one. And what I want to have changed is this allocation. So maybe let's delete them. Let's delete one or two of them so that you can really see that there's a change. So here I have two now. And let's also do that here. So that we are later on able to see what's going on. So and maybe this one. So we have, and maybe also this one. Okay. And the aim of this first demo is to show you how this will be updated. And to update it automatically, what I'm doing first is I go to electronic reporting, the electronic reporting workspace. And here I have a first model. If I go into designer, then I can see it's a very basic one. I want to have the cost center data and the hours. The data source for them is defined here in the designer. And here I can see I have the prod route trends table. And because I do not have cost centers and financial dimensions in this table, I added here calculated fields. Yeah? So you can here say add a calculated field. And then I added here cost center. And before I did some tests with business units and department as well. Yeah? And then of course, once you have that, you do not want to have individual transactions, but you want to have them summarized by cost center. And therefore I have this element that is a group by. Here you see the group by. I just say group by. And then I said, okay, take this prod route trends table, take the hours quantity, build the sum per cost center. That's it. Yeah. And then, of course, we want to have a nice output in Excel form on SharePoint, and that's what this thing here is taking care of. Yeah. This is basically making sure that my output is going to SharePoint. So if I run this, and I'm doing this manually, you see here is the Power BI, which is basically the SharePoint behind. You see here the month range. That is an automatic filter. In our case, it should be for August. And then you have here the batch processing so that you do not have to do what I'm doing now. So if I say OK here, what happens is this document here, which is stored on SharePoint, will be updated with the production hours data for August. And then I have here a flow. Let me go to my flow. It's the first one. And I just run through it. And what this flow is doing is basically updating the ledger allocation rules. So if we go back into our ledger allocation rules, and then this and this rule will be updated. And if we click on the destination, then we have to wait a while until the flow is really completed. And now you can see that some lines have already been added. Probably not all. So let's wait and maybe check the other. So if we click here on destination, also here's something processed. Maybe something did not work that right. Let's check our flow if it completed, or whether we were just too impatient. It's still running, that's why. So we have to wait a bit until this finishes. And once it's finished, then these rules should be updated. Maybe we have to close it and then wait the flow to complete and then check the rules again. Okay, so here maybe just pause the video and move forward. But what I want to show you here is then in the next step, once this is completed, then we can make use of these allocation rules and create allocation journals. So if once these allocation rules are updated, and let's double check that if this is now the case. Let's see. Yeah, now is the case. You see in 0.86, and for the other one, in the destination part, is also 0.86. We were just too impatient maybe, and to wait for the flow to complete. Yeah, now it's completed. It took a bit longer than the other one. Don't know why, but anyway, now it's completed based on the production hours. And remember here, this 0.86 that you see, this comes from our production order. So if we go back into our production order and check the last one, then we have here the root cut journal, and here in this one there are the 0.86, and that's used for the allocation. Okay, so now we are ready, and what we can do next is we can process the allocation requests. So we can come here and say, okay, we have cost center 7 and 8, and we want to make the allocation in August, of course. And because we want to double check it, I say proposal only. So this will create a journal, And then I will do the same for the other allocation rule, process allocation request. And here the second one is for the postings on the other cost centers. Yeah? So if you click on OK, then we should hopefully see the allocation journals. Do I have them still here? Yeah. So here, this is the first allocation journal that was created by my admin user. And what you can see here is the 1100 and the 1000. And then we have here 100 and 150. And this comes from the financial reports. Yeah. So here, 100, 1000, 150, 1100. They will be now allocated to the other cost centers. Yeah? So if I post this, then the allocation is basically made. And the same happens here with the second cost centers. So also here we can see different amounts. And if I post them, then also this allocation should be made. Okay, and then a word of note here. So you see here different accounts. 999003 and so on. And these accounts are basically statistical accounts that are set up in the chart of account. So if I go here into the ledger allocation rules, and in my first one, then you see here in the offset, you see number 2. And in this, for this rule, I used a different one. So that I can clearly show what's going on. And the same applies here. I used here this account. And here for this rule a different account, so that I can see, hey, what happened to these costs, and that I can clearly show it in my financial statements. So now let's run again the financial statement for August. So I say tools and then refresh cached financial data. And now if I generate the report, then we should see a difference. So from this report, we should now see on top a bit production costs, but also then this cost center costs, this and these ones, they should be emptied. Maybe except for small rounding differences, but in general, once the report finishes here and opens in a new tab, then we should see that they are basically cleaned. So you see that here, 0, 0, and that's also 0. And all of this supporting cost center costs, they are basically then moved to the red ones, to the main cost centers. Okay, so that's the first part that I want to show you. A pretty easy way how to realize that and to use the current month's production hours, project hours, whatever you have for allocation purposes. Now the next thing, and maybe let's go back to my PowerPoint, is I want to show you how you can automatically calculate surcharges. So what are surcharges? That's here. Maybe let's zoom that. That's in the costing sheet. You always see something like internal logistic costs, machine depreciation, indirect labor costs, and so on. And what I want to do is I want to create a new line here automatically with a new percentage that I calculate. And then the question is, how can we do that? Well, what I said, okay, I have here the logistic cost center cost. And that's from a previous example, so therefore the costs might be different to our current month's transactions. Mainly because of variances that are posted during production. But the principle is the same. So I take the cost center 12 cost, and then I divide it by the other cost center costs, 9, 10, 11, and 13. Then I get a ratio, and this ratio is calculated with electronic reporting, and then Power Automate or Flow is doing the update. And that's what we are checking out next. So let us go first to my costing sheet. So here is the internal logistic costs that we want to update. So you see here the current active one is 0 because I want to have it like that. And another thing that I made is I used a different costing version so that I can see the number clearly that I want to calculate. So I created a new one with the number 15. But that's it. And then the process is similar to what we saw before. So we go first to electronic reporting. I have a second electronic report, this one here. It is extracting 3 data. The first one is the total cost for cost center 12, then the other cost center cost, and then it calculates a ratio. And the data source that I used, oh sorry, that was the wrong one, is defined in the model mapping. So in the model mapping I have here the general journal account entry table used that I group, and I'm grouping them based. So here's the table to group. It's the general journal account entry table, and we just summarize the accounting currency amount. That's all. And I'm doing this twice because one time for cost center 12 and one time for the others. And then of course this is bound to these elements here. And then of course the output is again here, this one. So if I run this, but let's check the session date. It jumped back. So let us change that to August. If I run this report then for August, then it should make the calculations for us, and then give us the ratio for August. So if I come here and run this report, and this as I said, this one can be automated, by making use of batch processing and these relative date filters. So I have here month range. This is August. Here's also August, and here you see the filter for the first table or group table, and here's the filter for the other one. So if I say OK, then this will also be put it on SharePoint. And now I have a second flow, this one number 2, that is doing the update for me in the costing sheet. And to see that and verify the data, let us do a calculation. So let me open it in Excel. So that's my calculation that I did before for German, for the German video. And now what we are doing is we just calculate here the cost center costs of the main cost centers. Then we have 3039.96, then we have 2155.98, and then we have 19, 28, 19. So this is cost center 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we have here 13. And what I want to calculate is the cost from cost center 12 to the other ones. So I build the sum here. And then also here, and if I'm doing this correctly, then we should see a ratio of cancel times 100 of 23.75%. that is then updated in the costing sheet. So let us go to the costing sheet and see if it has already been updated. So if you go to costing sheets and then go here to the internal logistic costs, and then we should see here is a new line. You see here version 15, 23.76, and that's what we calculated here. So here is note it's pending. I did not activate it. So you can manually check it before you do that, because I mean you see here the big jump, and maybe you do not want to have that. But what basically happens is the costing version 15 is basically filled with a new line from Power Automate with this percentage that is calculated in electronic reporting. And that's the way how you can update your costing sheet, and you can basically calculate everything that you want. If we go back here one step, you can also update here prices for categories. Just create an electronic report, define how this is calculated, and then run it. Use Power Automate, and then you have the prices updated. And of course, I mean, here if we go into the flow, that's the one I run. If you do it like me and say, okay, you create a record such as an indirect cost percentage, then you can define, okay, you set it as pending, and then to activate it, you maybe send an email to a costing manager that is then going in and activating the whole thing. So it's pretty easy to realize, and all of that works out of the box with this magic electronic reporting framework. So in case you do not have looked at it, I would recommend taking a look at it, because you can do a lot of things with that, calculating allocations, indirect cost percentages, cost rates, whatever you want. Okay, so that's it, basically what I wanted to show you. I hope you got something to imagine what you can do with all of these tools that I just showed you. It's maybe not the best solution, but a good workaround, and it gives you so many possibilities what you can do basically with standard tools in a very, very simple manner. Okay, I hope you found that insightful. And as usual, if you have questions or comments, just ping me or send me an email. So thanks a lot, and then see you next time.